It's a universal symbol. We see it on bathroom doors mostly. It's also in emojis, and it's a staple in the arsenal of a first grade artist. It's a stick figure, so we've got a circle for a head, 2 lines for arms, 2 longer lines for legs. Right, so it represents people, right? But more specifically, it represents male people. By default, it's a guy. Unless, of course, we give it the long hair and a triangle skirt, or maybe throw in the color pink. One sec. Okay, there we go. Because, you know, all the female people have long hair and wear skirts and worship all things pink, while guys are just guys. So now to introduce sports. That word probably means very different things to different people. So on one end of the spectrum, you might associate it with that thing I'm forced to do in gym class, or why lots of people yell at the TV on a certain Sunday, while certain others may be of the opinion, #ball is life. But no matter where you stand on that spectrum, you probably have a very singular image of sports, and that is sweaty guys running around a field, court, track with maybe a ball involved, and you're not alone. In a survey I conducted, out of the 107 people asked to name a professional athlete, 98 of them responded with a male athlete. So there were NBA players, NFL players, Olympians. Not a single person could name a women's professional sports team. And I don't blame them, seeing as the mainstream media has again created this male default here with respect to sports. So with my talk today, I hope to challenge that default and stray from preconceived notions, because many things in the world are so much more than what people make them out to be. Quick history lesson, let's take it back to 1972 America. A loaf of bread cost 25 cents, a gallon of gas, 36 cents. Those were the days, right? Women could not own credit cards or get a divorce without proving a criminal wrong in her husband. 1 in 27 girls played organized sports. To compare, that number is 1 in 3 in the present day. In June of that year, a bill called Title IX was passed, and it reads, "No person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any education program or activity receiving federal financial assistance." And nowhere in those 37 words did the word sports even come up, but the impact that this would have on leveling the playing field, both literally and metaphorically for society on a whole, was greater than anyone could have imagined. A generation of who we now know as the greatest female athletes, the Fortune 500 CEOs, they all grew up benefiting from this piece of legislation. Athletes have a special platform, much like entertainers of the music or film industries. They're the ones we root for, the ones we spend hours reading about and yelling your head off for. They embody strength and unity and teach, through example, lessons about hard work paying off or rising above failure. These people are, according to my survey and society on a whole, overwhelmingly male. Now you might ask, why does it matter? Why can't we just all look up to role models as people, right? But there's something to be said about how it feels to see someone like you in that role model position. It all matters. Race, gender, or religion are just a few of those largest categories that shape one's backgrounds and experiences. You identify with them like you couldn't with someone else. Now the media would have you believe that women are catty backstabbers, or weak, tragic victims, or vain, shallow love interests, or absolute emotional train wrecks, but women like these athletes prove that all wrong. They are women of color, of different body shapes or sexual orientations, but above all, damn good at what they do. And that representation sends the message that anyone can achieve such great things. Because not too long ago, that kid was Heather O'Reilly, U.S. Women's National Team World Cup champion. With issues such as body image, confidence, and leadership closely tied in. In a time when media sexualization is more rampant internet ads, billboards, TV commercials, magazines, they all promote this very singular image of women. It should sadly come as no surprise that of those surveyed by the National Institute on Media and the Family, that 70% of women in a normal, healthy weight range want to be thinner. 78% of 17-year-old girls are unhappy with their bodies. And 90% of those with an eating disorder in America are female. There are very real consequences to the pretty pictures we consume. But knowingly or not, athletes tear down that norm. So growing up playing soccer, I learned invaluable lessons. I was really shy, but soccer taught me to be loud on the field, to communicate what I wanted, and demand that ball when I was in an open position. And this was all based on my judgment, which I learned to trust, even those decisions made in a split second. It taught me to work hard, to not only be my best, but encourage those around me to be their best as well, because only then could we succeed. It taught me that I would make a billion mistakes, some more mortifying than others. Like, there was this one time I was defending the back post on a corner kick, and when the ball came, I kind of need it in my own goal. But what mattered was not being fazed by that, because in the fast-paced game, opportunity was constant, and in the next second, I could be making things happen instead of dwelling on that mistake. Which, all right, I totally did, but I was like 12, so that's what you do when you're 12. And beyond playing sports, watching them as a fan became an even greater source of inspiration for me. My 13-year-old self had no idea what she was getting herself into when she casually tuned in to USA versus Brazil in the 2011 Women's World Cup quarterfinal. That was where it all began, and I remember sitting on my grandmother's couch in Kunming, China. It was the rest of the house was asleep, so my game was on mute. And what I call the greatest moment in all of sports history happened when Abby Wambach's last-minute header saved the U.S. from its earliest ever elimination. The drama and heroics of sports enthralled me. But the women's game, I came to find, is more than just the flashy hat tricks or cool moves, and quite a bit less than the big bucks and fame that men's had. It is learning that these women's professional soccer players work side jobs at night during the season at gas stations or diners just to pay off their rent and make ends meet. And my 13-year-old self wondered how they were motivated just by the love of the game and the hope to pave the way for future generations of Division I female athletes to truly call themselves professionals. It is ignoring the YouTube comments, the creative variations all along the lines of get back in the kitchen. Just ignore them, don't be whiny. It's easy for you to say, but my 13-year-old self saw them as a constant, plastered across nearly every video of the women I looked up to most. It is Sepp Blatter, the then president of International Soccer's governing body, for female players to play in more feminine clothes, such as wearing tighter shorts. Translation, looking sexy is the only way to get ahead if you're a woman. Even the big boss publicly endorsed this, and my 13-year-old self took note. It is hearing society tell you repeatedly that it is a biological fact that she just can't play as well as the men can, that no matter how hard she works, she cannot overcome the barrier that is gender. My 13-year-old self rejected that message. Lots of people haven't rejected that message. The common argument is made market for women's sports. Investors don't want to tap into it. Now, last summer headlines were made when the Women's World Cup champions won 17 times less prize money than the men had in their World Cup the year before. Now, fair, isn't it? Since inferior product equals less interest, so there's smaller revenue, less sponsors, and overall just less money going into it. But what if I told you the equation is all wrong? Here's some numbers for you. 26 million people watched the US vs. Japan final in that same World Cup, shattering the record for most viewers on a US soccer game of any gender. During the season at gas stations or diners just to pay off their rent and make ends meet. And my 13-year-old self wondered how they were motivated just by the love of the game and the hope to pave the way for future generations of Division I female athletes to truly call themselves professionals. The women get paid $1,350 to win one of those games and get nothing for losing, while the men's team get 4 times as much for losing, for just showing up. It gets better. So in U.S. Soccer's own reports, the women's team is forecast to generate them a profit of $5.2 million, while the men are forecast to lose them $1 million in 2017. So math never really was my favorite subject, but like, come on, these numbers are pretty obvious to me. So there's this paradoxical circle that women's sports are trapped in economically. A way to illustrate this is merchandise. So let's say the casual male sports fan wants to buy a Marta jersey. She is, after all, the 5-time FIFA Women's World Player of the Year. But Nike doesn't sell Marta jerseys in a men's cut. So is that guy going to go out and buy a women's size jersey? Probably not. Another example, FIFA organizes and controls its broadcasters and sponsors for the World Cup. But due to perceived attitudes that no one watches women's soccer, it doesn't bother to market the tournament as aggressively, designating a smaller sum of money for like how many cameras are allowed in the stadiums, and advertising spots are deemed less valuable, so they offer them up for less. Thus, overall, there is less hype and, bottom line, less money. But nothing was inferior about the product in the first place. But things are changing. I see this on breezy August evenings when I go to a Sky Blue FC game and there are little boys running around the bleachers wearing Carly Lloyd jerseys. I see this in the confetti of the first ticker tape parade for a women's sports team down New York City's Canyon of Heroes last July, attended by tens of thousands. I felt this firsthand last summer when I was fortunate enough to attend a Women's World Cup game, and standing there amidst a roaring crowd of 51,000 at the US vs. Germany semifinal, I was overcome with emotion. For one night, I experienced a different world. The unquestionable focus for an event of this magnitude was on a group of women who epitomized unity, strength, and perseverance in the face of adversity. The sport meant so much more to me than it had just 4 years ago. It wasn't about the impressive tackles or dramatic last-minute goals. It was understanding the incredible backstories of each player, the societal backlash, and the history of how women's soccer grew into what it is today, even if there's still a long way to go. That night is comparable to another night, one in which the long-haired stick figure is also in the spotlight, standing before you now with a similar message, with a similar hope that we as a society can come to accept and embrace stick figures of all sorts, no matter the label. Thank you.